Brought to you by Dan Deary, proudly serving the Cedar Valley for 3 generations.
We're talking UNI Panther football as UNI had their first road game of the year, went out to Wyoming to take on an FBS Cowboys team and came away with a 31-7 final score. The Panthers' first loss of the season. Coach, first road trip though, how did everybody kind of handle the routine and everything that you and your staff wanted to put together for the trip?
The trip itself was fantastic. I want to give shout out to Owen Chandler. He was the one that really was the brains and the brawn behind the trip. Got everything organized. Got us to the airport on time. We went out a day early, so that even added another layer of complexity to it. But thought the organization was fantastic. The structure of both, Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, and then getting home at a decent time on Saturday night. Overall, for our first road trip, here this year, they did a great job.
Coach, I really noticed you guys were there to win that football game. First possession of the game for your offense, 4th and 6, you go for it and end up converting it on a penalty, but the aggressive approach towards midfield.
Yeah, I believe in our guys, and so anytime we're going to take a chance, we're going to do it. And tribute to our players. It was a 4th and 6. It should have been a 4th and 1. We were going for it. And we had a bad penalty, and that was kind of the theme. Kind of weird how usually your first game you have a lot of penalties and you correct them the second game. It was the opposite. We had too many penalties. Really all 3 phases, and nice to see us get a little bit bailed out, though it was a good call by the officials, and unfortunate that we didn't get any points out of that drive. We had two of our 3 drives really in that first part of the game were great. 11 play, 12 play, and so just to be able to continue to extend and be efficient, we need to continue to do that.
Had a solid scoring drive as well. A tough day in terms of rushing yards for the offense, tough sledding, but you do cap it off with a goal line touchdown by Harrison Bay-Bowie with your first half touchdown.
Yeah, and it was great seeing Jack Hearn, one of our offensive linemen, lined up in the backfield there to give it a little extra push. But Harrison doesn't need that a ton. Everybody who knows him, he doesn't necessarily need a blocker. He's a bring your own blocker type of back, and need to see him get in the end zone for us to tie it up at that point was good. But yeah, to your point, I think that's one of our areas of improvement for this week is our run blocking just needs to get better. For us to be successful, not only this week but in the long term, we need to be able to run the football, and that does start up front. And I think we're targeting things the right way. It looks like fundamentally we're getting off the ball the way we need to get off the ball, but just being able to finish blocks really is kind of been our Achilles heel. We'll make maybe initial decent contact, so the contact isn't great as far as that initial blow, and then our pad level hand placement, base, active feet, like all those things kind of then go out the window. And so this week, that's really going to be a point of emphasis for us.
The passing game, you had Tysen Kershaw leading the way with 6 receptions for him. He's a senior, I know, talking to him before the season started, loves the new energy that your staff has this year. What are you seeing from Tysen in his senior season?
He's just a go-to guy. He has that section, one of the sections on our play sheet of how do we get him involved and get him touches, and then I think with every opponent you get more information on who you are and what you have, and we knew we had a playmaker with him, just all the plays that he made in the spring and in training camp. And now it's like, okay, what is his best skill set? Is it getting a jet sweep, or is it keeping him on the edge and letting him win those one-on-one matchups? And he's proven to be able to do both. But for us now, it's like, okay, what does he do the best? And let's continue to put him in those positions to be successful.
Coach, we're seeing Graham Fredrickson catch some passes coming out of the backfield. Christian Collins had some carries, looked good at running back. You're still trying to figure out who you have these first few games of the season for the long haul, aren't you?
Yeah, I think it's part of it is who we have. Part of it is like we just need to continue to develop depth. Football is a game of attrition. It really is, and you are going to lose players here and there just by the nature of how it's played. And if you're playing it the right way, it's a physical game, and so we need to count on everybody. I have a slide that shows the number 110 on there, and we have 118 guys, but it's just a constant reminder where everybody's important regardless of the role. And then us as coaches, we got to coach the first guy and the last guy exactly the same way, because we need to make sure everybody's ready to go. And there's always a handful of guys that this year isn't going to be their time. But those guys are right on the fringe. We need to continue to push them and challenge them, put them in those stressful situations, see how they respond. And okay, now we can count on those guys. The depth development in those situations really is the most important thing. Not necessarily who do we have, but how many guys can we get ready to go.
All right, we'll talk defense when we come back. The Panthers were in the backfield quite a bit out in Wyoming. More with Coach Stepsis coming up after this.